Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is Election Edge Wednesday's edition. 6 o'clock back east, 3 o'clock here on the West Coast. And I know you've been hearing it all day, folks, about commentators. Some of you listen to Fox News, some listen to Newsmax, some get your news through podcasts. And then, of course, there's the mainstream ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, and those left-wing outlets that are trying to tell you how horrible Donald Trump did last night. Well, we're not going to sugarcoat it for you. This was not Donald Trump's best debate. It's questionable based on substance who won the debate. I know all the polls have come out and said Kamala Harris won the debate. I get it. And I know, and we're going to talk about all these things, about the fact checks, the lies, 3-on-1. We're going to get into all that. But on the surface of it, it was a missed opportunity last night for Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump had some great points during that debate. And, we were here on Patriot TV. We did an hour show before it, watched 2 hours of debate. We did a half-hour show afterward. So when I got back to the office last night, I took a look. I watched the debate again. Watched it for a second time to really drill down into some of the finer points. And I'm going to go off some notes that we made during the debate and really highlight some of the highlights and then some of the lowlights. So at the end of the day, the question we all have to ask ourselves about last night, again, we're looking forward, not backward. I wish Trump would have remembered that going into the debate last night. The big question is, on those 7 swing states, those 10 to 15% of voters who were undecided heading into that debate last night, how were they affected by it? History doesn't give us a really good guide. And I'll tell you why. George W. Bush lost a couple debates, and yet he still won the presidency. We've seen other candidates lose debates and win the presidency. And we've had situations, well, we saw what happened when he absolutely destroyed Joe Biden. Biden had to get out of the race. So this is now Donald Trump's 7th presidential debate. Kamala Harris is first. Now, I think we have to be totally honest with, and which is why we don't spin it like the mainstream media. Kamala Harris had a good debate last night. Yeah, I got the same concerns you do. Yeah, the moderators did her a lot of favorites. Yes, she dodged most of the questions. Yes, we don't know what her policies. We're going to get into all that. But the fact of the matter is, she held her own and she looked presidential. Now, Donald Trump, on the other hand, this is his 7th debate. People know Donald Trump. Remember what we talked to you about on Election Edge before the debate. Only 9% of voters wanted more information on Donald Trump. Who are those 9? I mean, this guy is the most probably famous person in the world. More has been written and said about him as a former president than anyone else. I respect people's opinion, but 9% not knowing what Trump stands for seems a little out of line. On the other hand, the sitting vice president, 28 to 30% of voters wanted to know more about what her positions were. They learned a little bit about it last night, and we're going to get into that piece too. But she, just like Trump's gotten a lot of criticism today for how his demeanor was, how he handled some of the questions, how she baited him, and oh boy, she did bait him. Do not let anyone tell you that that didn't happen, because it did. But he had numerous missed opportunities, particularly on the economy, but she had numerous missed opportunities too to clarify her positions, and I really believe it was intentional. She didn't want to do it. So when I look at the overall picture, I'm saying, okay, even a lot of Republicans are saying Donald Trump lost that debate last night. I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm leaning towards the fact that he could have done a whole lot better. I'm not making excuses for him. but she held her own and he didn't exactly shine. Okay? I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. Policy, he was spot on the vast majority of the policies. But when we went into that debate last night, what did we tell you on the pregame show? We said Trump needs to talk about the economy and inflation, talk about the border, talk about crime, talk about international affairs. And he did all those. Particularly, his closing argument was exceptionally well. And when she really sort of stubbed her toe on foreign policy, saying, well, I met with Zelensky 3 days after, and then when she left 3 days later, Russia invaded, that doesn't look too well. Okay. What did she play up to her strengths last night? We said before the debate, she's going to talk abortion, she's going to talk about health care, and she's going to talk about Trump's convictions, his charges, January 6th, that type of stuff. So, I mean, it sort of played out how we thought it was going to play out. I was genuinely surprised Trump. It was like I read an article, can't remember who wrote it, but he described it like this. Lucy took 6 footballs to the game, and just to be safe, Trump brought some extra footballs just to make sure they could be pulled away. He did step in it on some of those baiting issues, folks. And don't let any of your conservative outlets tell you, oh, no, he didn't. He did. And he could have done a heck of a lot better. But let's sort of start off with this. Trump looked good at the start of that debate. He was, quote, well tanned. So the makeup people did a pretty good job. I think that when the debate started off, when she walked up and shook his hand, I thought that was a big deal. And a lot of people did not expect that, but I thought it was appropriate. And to Trump's credit, today at the 9/11 ceremony, they exchanged pleasantries again. I think as far as debates in American politics, I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, before I get into the debate thing, everybody, particularly on the right-wing echo chamber, is blaming the moderators and blaming ABC. There is some truth and credibility to that. David Muir is a professional journalist. I thought, frankly, and I made these notes during the debate, and I'm going to show them to you. Fact-checking on a live audience, only one side, that is ridiculous. And especially when the other side made 7 or 8 statements that were just patently false. Yeah, Trump had his zingers. They corrected him. But if you're going to do live fact-checking as a debate moderator, it has to be done by both. You can't just pick Trump out and say, well, we're going to fact-check Trump. It doesn't work. That is where people on the right have a beef right there, because he was fact-checked 5 times during this debate last night. She was fact-checked 0. Now, if Trump was on his A game like he was at the CNN debate, it wouldn't have mattered. But Trump got flustered last night. And the debate seemed to take a turn after she baited him on the crowd size. So we'll get into that a little bit when we really go through the segments on it. Second thing, I don't know about you, but I had this distinct feeling while I was watching the debate, I felt like Trump was on trial. Meaning he was second-guessed a lot, and yet his policy positions were right. Yeah, we learned a few things about Kamala Harris last night. We learned that she owns a gun. Now, Trump's received criticism today throughout the media for not looking over at her. Why? His job is to look into the camera. There's no reason he has to look over at her. She was staring Trump down during the debate. Fine, that's a debate strategy. There's no right or wrong answer to it. All right, so I go back to the central point of what we're talking about here, and we're not going to know this answer for a few days. Did those undecided voters, which way are they leaning? You know, it's really, debates are fascinating because while the snapshot reaction is, oh, Harris won. CNN poll, 63-37, Harris won. A couple other polling out, oh yeah, she won. But you know what? When voters who were undecided are listening, and they were listening intently, they heard Trump's policy positions, his hits and his misses, but of that near 30% that went into that debate looking to understand more about Kamala Harris, they generally walked out of that debate not learning what they wanted to learn. She really, while an opportunity last night to put her away, she also had missed opportunities where she could have expanded those policy positions to talk about them. And again, I'm no Democratic sympathizer. I mean, Donald Trump needs to win this election hands down. But while I was watching that debate performance last night, particularly of Harris, I'm sitting here saying, what are these numbskulls in the Biden campaign that she inherited doing, keeping this woman under wraps? I may disagree with her policies because I understand what her policies are. But to hide her in the basement and do one interview in 55 days, that's almost like malpractice, political campaign malpractice. Sure, if she ends up winning, they're going to be called geniuses. And if she loses, they're going to be called idiots. But the way she demonstrated her performance in that debate last night, well, I don't see a reason she couldn't be out there doing network interviews or giving press conferences. She did dodge a lot of questions last night. So that's sort of the preamble into what we saw happen last night. And I just got to believe, let the dust settle a little bit. Are you going to be shocked if a poll or two comes out and the race is now tied again? You know, Trump had momentum going into that debate. There was no doubt about it. We cited the statistics. You know, the famed Nate Silver. Trump's chance to win, 64%, 36% for her. Trump gaining ground in battleground states. Trump leading New York Times Siena poll, Harris poll by a point, tied in the Pew Research poll. Battleground states, 7 of them, plus or minus 1 or 2 points, every one of them tight. So you could see some movement where Trump clearly had stopped her momentum, or she stopped it herself by these, non-appearances, non-media events. But Trump may have stepped on it himself last night, and it would not shock me to see a slight uptick for her. Now, do I think any of Trump's voters are going to leave Trump because of this? No. Trump's got a rock solid 46.5%. That's his base. Maybe 47. I don't think he's going to lose it. I mean, a handful maybe, but on a percentage basis, I don't think he loses any percentage of his followers from last night. But what Trump needed to do last night was pick up some of those independent voters and those ones who had not made up their mind. And we don't know whether he did that or not. She could win the debate based upon the perception of viewers and still not have that translate into votes. It's happened before. Okay, we're going to take our first break here. But when I come back, we are going to start at the top of the debate when David Muir asked the question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And she had a classic Kamala Harris answer. We'll pick up the start of the debate and we're going to walk you through detailed analysis. We'll be back shortly.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today for lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military. Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back. Okay, so Donald Trump was the tan bull in a china shop last night, and we will agree with that. All right, but let's start out with the debate. And you're going to have to excuse me, folks. This is 8 pages of notes taken during the debate last night. So I am going to refer to some of it, as we go through today. So let's start with the very first piece to it. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And boy, this was a layup. This is when Trump was doing great in the debate. Obviously, she couldn't answer the question, okay? So what did she do? She started talking about housing is too expensive. Well, we already knew that. She threw out the ideas about, I want to give $50,000 to help small businesses, a tax credit. I want to give $25,000 to help people buy a house. Okay, again, she was talking with her hands a lot also, folks. Normally when you're talking with your hands like that, it's not a sign of supreme confidence, shall we say. So it was sort of a missed opportunity for Trump, though, for the following. When she got done her non-answer to the question, okay, Trump literally could have pounded her, talking about how under the Biden-Harris administration, inflation's topped 21% since they've been in office. But he didn't, he tried to hit the inflation piece, but he didn't hammer it down as good as he could have. And when he talked about millions pouring in illegal immigration, again, don't step on yourself. That was a topic for later on in the discussion. Focus on inflation. Focus on the economy. He did talk about it. And he made the following statement: I created a great economy, which he did up until COVID hit. So, sort of good, but sort of a missed opportunity there. And Trump, what he should have done is answer the question for her. In other words, said, hey, Madam Vice President, you didn't answer the question. He asked you if you're better off now than you were 4 years ago. And most Americans say they're not. So again, he hit on the economy pretty good, but that was clearly a dodge by her on the most important issue, and he didn't really take advantage of it. That's why I'm saying sort of missed opportunity. Okay, so then she started talking about, on the economic issues, Project 2025, cleaning up Trump's mess, Trump was a disaster on January 6th in COVID. I mean, that, he turns around and disavows anything to 2025. That's fine. But he talked about the tax cuts. And I think you could elaborate a little bit more on them. But look, elections are forward looking, not backward looking. And to have Trump talking about ventilators and all the great things we did supplying the world, when people look back at COVID, they really don't care about the fact that we made a lot of ventilators. Okay. And his administration did a pretty damn good job with that. But that's looking backward, not forward. So as the political campaign consultants will tell you, look forward. What can you do? What can you do for the American people? So again, not the best moment in the world, but again, Trump got in some pretty good zingers here when he talked about, he was educated at Wharton. Wharton's a great school. He didn't take really the bait on, his dad gave him the money. He said he gave him a little bit, no big deal. But on Harris's non-answer, and again, Trump's funny. The run line was pretty funny. I've had some people chuckling on that one. But what Trump really, really focused on when he said, look, under his administration, we didn't have inflation. He should have pounded that away. Just keep focusing on that. And he did to a degree. So I want to give him some points on that. It wasn't so bad. She had no policies. Okay. She said, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, but she didn't say how she was going to do it. There was no clear economic policy out of Kamala Harris. And for those regular watchers of Election Edge, that she made some, just blunders on the Marxist policies that she talked about. And Trump did hit her on that. He explained to her that, she's a Marxist, but Donald, you can't stop there just calling her a Marxist. You have to explain to the audience why. And he almost got there. He's, talked about her father, who was a Marxist teacher. Okay, so this part of the debate, Trump's doing pretty well. Okay, he's focusing on the economy, focusing on inflation. He's letting her off the hook by not really pounding back that question that Muir asked. Again, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? That's a central theme in every presidential campaign. Now, let's just sort of say this. On the very first part of it, when we talked about how would you grade Trump on that piece, probably a solid B+, A-. How would I grade her on the economic issues? Yeah, probably a C. I mean, she did not do that great. Okay, and again, don't talk about illegal immigration when you got so much fertile ground to go on the economy, and they knew they were going to go to illegal immigration next. Okay. Then Trump has his classic line, 20 million criminals pouring into the country. Again, what are the economic implications if that number is right? And most estimates have it at 10 to 12 million. So I just sort of chalk that up to Trump exaggeration. Not a big deal there. But like we always say on Election Edge, what are the implications? The government has to educate those people. There's housing, food, shelter, you name it. The old Obamacare phones. That's where Trump had an opportunity, and he sort of let it slip away a little bit. All right, now, one of the not so great parts of the debate, and we predicted it's going to happen. The abortion issue pops up. Look, Trump really stretched this one, talking about how Democrats want to kill babies in the 9th month. It's happened on a rare occasion, where they had the abortion in the 9th month. But when he stepped over the bounds and said, 5 states, they're killing babies after they're born. I know of one incident in one state where that occurred. Trump's exaggeration there caused him to get the first fact check on a debate by a moderator. I mean, he was fact checked on it. And that didn't go great. Now, where he was doing well on the abortion was talking about how the Supreme Court justices sent it back to the states. And he emphasized over and over that's where it belonged. But this was not going to be a winning issue for Trump. He needed to hold his ground there. He didn't really. I mean, she took the strong position as you expected she would. But, that was one of his issues there. And I even wrote it down. I'm like, they just fact-checked Trump on this. And, on the national abortion ban, where they asked the question repeatedly, Trump knows damn good well he's not going to sign a national abortion. That's not going to happen. Frankly, I don't know why it was so hard not to say that. He wouldn't do it. He sort of dodged around a little bit by saying, well, it's never going to pass Congress. And, she knows it's never going to go through. No, there's a certain segment of voters that wanted to know that. And they don't really care about Congress. They want to know what the position was. He had an opportunity there, little bit of a miss. But talking about executing babies after birth, that's not a winning strategy because it doesn't happen in all these states. He got called out on the carpet over it. Illegal immigration, they sort of then moved to that topic. So think about the pattern of the debate here. They're starting with the economy and inflation, strong suit for Trump. They pivot to abortion. They knew it would be a strong suit for Harris. Now we go back to immigration. And this is the piece. This is what I call layup city. I mean, every indication people trust Trump on illegal immigration. And he did pretty well there. Harris, of course, was dodging questions. She didn't want to answer them. And again, he waited till the end of the debate, but he could have pounded her on this border czar stuff. He didn't really do it until the end. So I thought, his opportunity there, he took pretty good advantage of it on the immigration piece. But when the hyperbole comes in, and Trump sort of looked a little angry there. But here's what set him off. Okay, and it's classic Trump. Say before the debate, do not get sucked into these stupid things. Well, he got sucked into them all right. When she talked about the crowd size, I just was sitting there saying, oh no, I know what's coming. And it did. He took the bait, hook, line, sinker. Lucy threw two or three footballs in there. And she baited him. And Trump's basic response, talking about how his crowds were great, how nobody shows up at her. Voters don't care about that. Voters, what are you going to do to solve my problems? He sort of got back on it, talking about we need to take our country back. And he talked about all the people going to the various government agencies and they can't speak English, etc. Those are good points. But then he got off on this tangent about illegal immigrants eating cats and dogs, and that is where it seemed to go off the rails. I mean, I'm sitting here saying the public doesn't give, no pun intended, a rat's ass about this. They really don't. They care about illegal immigration and the crime and the incarceration and the fact that people don't feel safe and secure, and there's been high-profile murders. I mean, talk to people's feelings and what their fears are and their hopes about how you'll solve the problem. Constantly talking about fear is not a solution. And there were some pretty dark moments in the debate where he had an opportunity to really put her away on the illegal immigration piece. It didn't quite happen, okay? Fact checked again on illegals and eating cats and dogs and stuff. That was just a bad part of the debate. It wasn't good. Now, where he sort of rebounded, I mean, he talked about the fact that, hey, look, sometimes you got to fire people because they fire off this loaded question, okay? And again, she didn't get this, but he did, okay? And when they talk about, well, you've had 200 people that support Republicans that support Harris, and, you got all these people who used to work for you that came out and they said they you're a fool and they'd never work for you again. Well, Trump pivoted somewhat good, talking about how foreign leaders have told him he thinks Biden's a fool. And a lot of times during the debate, you thought, well, Trump's debating Biden. But here again, now we're halfway through it. Trump is starting to teeter a little bit here, getting a little bit off the rails. So I kept saying, I'm watching this and get back focused, Mr. President, get back focused. And she did distract him. Okay, we're going to take a mid-course break, but when I come back, we're going to talk about the other issues they talked about and more live fact checks and none for her. Be back in about 90 seconds.
Don't let them win. Patriot TV is committed to delivering the truth. America's new network for patriots is growing fast, and we'd love you to join us as a member of Patriot TV. Your support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver unbiased reporting, thought-provoking discussions, and insights you won't find anywhere else. From in-depth interviews to behind-the-scenes footage, Patriot TV brings you closer to the voices shaping our nation's future. Whether it's political developments, cultural shifts, or global affairs, Patriot TV keeps you informed and empowered. As a member of Patriot TV, you'll get perks like personal invitations to exclusive Patriot TV events, where you can gather and network with like-minded Americans. We'll also host online events throughout the year with General Flynn, who's committed to host live Q&A webinars where callers like you can ask him questions and get real answers. Access to these events will be members only, so go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. We have a great membership option starting at just $9.99 a month, or save with our annual membership for only $99, or take advantage of the best value, the 2-year membership for just $159. Go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. Do your part to make sure the truth gets out to all patriots and help ensure future programming. Become a member today. Just go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member, join today.
And we're back. And just to wrap up that abortion topic there, Trump had some pretty good lines in there about there she goes again. And, I'm the leader on in vitro fertilization. I thought that was somewhat humorous when he said that. But it was, the fact checkers should have fact checked her on that piece, talking about a national abortion ban, because that's never been in the cards. So, again, missed opportunity to fact check her. And then when they brought up that Project 2025, that should have been fact-checked too. Trump has disavowed that, has never said he would adopt those policies. So here again, he's getting fact-checked and she's not. And when a moderator does that in a real-time debate, it's sort of bizarro world. Now, did Trump contribute? Yeah, some. All right, let me move on. They were talking about illegal immigration, okay? And look, everybody watching that debate knows that you're not going to deport, mass deportation, 15 million people. Okay? The question came up, well, how are you going to, your policy says mass deportation. Again, Trump was winning the issue. And when he talks about terrorists coming over, millions of criminals, I don't know if it's millions of criminals, but that's a Trump exaggeration. But if he emphasizes the point about a lot of criminals coming across, we know that's a fact. Venezuelan gangs, they are in Colorado, they're ransacking cities. Stick to those facts. Those are key points to make. Crime is through the roof. And I knew damn good and well what was going to happen. Here again, Trump gets fact-checked. In a lot of blue cities that have had a lot of illegal immigration, crime is through the roof. But according to the U.S. Department of Prisons, who put out, and law enforcement that has statistics in certain areas of the country, aggregately, depending upon which crimes you count, total crime may actually be slightly down, but the crimes that get everybody's attention, the hideous ones, are up. So right on cue, fact check. No, Trump's wrong about that. No, Trump's wrong. And he should have continued to pounding on all the crime that's come with this illegal immigration. I didn't hear fentanyl get mentioned hardly at all last night. You know, all the drugs that are coming up. But then things sort of shifted a little bit. So now he's talking about this. And Harris, of course, she pivots. And you knew it was going to come up about, you know, the charges, the felony convictions and whatnot. And I thought his replies on that were pretty good about the Justice Department and Biden and Harris weaponizing the Justice Department to go after him. There's a lot of truth to that. A lot of people are concerned about it. It has been lawfare, and we've talked about it on this show. So I think his responses to that were reasonably pretty good. And I thought he gave a great line there. He goes, you know, I damn near took a bullet in the head because of democracy. So I think he had some good cues on there. But here again, then things started to deteriorate. So again, the bait was out there. And when Muir asked him about the 2020 election and stated, well, you know, there have been reports that you've now accepted that you lost it. Again, great opportunity to just deflect and move on. But no, he said, no, I was just kidding. And Muir's like, well, this doesn't look like you're kidding in these responses. Again, Trump's being fact-checked on his worst issue. Looking back at the 2020 election. I was hoping we could get through that debate without any mention of it, but no, it happened. So Harris begins pounding Trump over his crimes. Then they get, you know, when you're on the defense in a debate and you're talking about defending yourself against Justice Department overreach, and you're bringing up Alvin Bragg, and you're bringing up Fani Willis, you're on the defensive. Plain and simple. So that was not the best moment. And then if you're starting to talk about specific questions asked about the 2020 election, oh boy. And I wrote these down. These are some other notes I took from the other night. This was his low point in the election because he's talking about the 2020 election and not how to help people in 2024 when he's got this ripe opportunity in front of him. The election denial piece, that's not a good look, doesn't sell very well. Talking about Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania's. Old news. Old news. We got an election coming up in less than 60 days. People start voting in less than 20. The future, not the past. Crowd size. And I'll tell you another line I didn't like when he said, looked over at her and he said, Joe Biden hates you. Come on. That's not doing anything for anybody. And he continued getting fact-checked. So, sitting here, and I'm chalking up right now to like 5-0. And I'm saying, well, wait a minute now. She didn't get fact-checked on 2025. They brought up that Charlottesville garbage that's been totally defunct. They could have fact-checked her on that. When they were talking about unemployment, and then she said, well, Trump had the highest unemployment since the Great Depression. Trump's unemployment was the lowest until COVID hit. And what the hell do you think they're going to do? The government wouldn't allow businesses to open. And of course unemployment shot up. And the government printed $2 trillion and threw it year one threw it at the economy. And it later became $6. That's where all that inflation was the beginning came from. Okay, so you can't, that was just an incorrect statement. That could have been fact-checked very easily. They could have fact-checked her when she said Trump opposed in vitro fertilization. Like Trump himself said, I'm the champ of IVF. And she wasn't fact-checked on that either. Muir and his co-debate analyst said she never wanted to confiscate guns. Well, there's videos out there showing that she did. Now, I thought her line, hey, I own a gun. I don't want someone taking my gun away, whatever she said, I'm paraphrasing. That's okay. But the video exists. And then another whopper of Harris that this was a softball fact check, where she said Trump tax cuts only help the really wealthy. That's not true at all. It helped millions and millions of middle-class Americans. That's why we had a growing, strong economy and low inflation prior to COVID when Trump was president. Those are you better off when I was president, or are you better off when Biden was president? Now, Trump did a really good job of tying Harris to Biden, so much so that during the debate, she had to come out and say, Mr. President, you're debating me, you're not debating Joe Biden, as she was distancing herself from some of his policies. A la the we're not looking back. Bear in mind, one of the goals and objectives of Kamala Harris was to be the change candidate. Paint Trump as the incumbent. Paint him as sort of the aggressive one. She accomplished that last night. Now, areas where Trump was strong. He brought up the point about fracking multiple times, and he did a damn good job of that. Because and for those who watch election ads, you've seen that Dave McCormick ad we've run, and multiple other ads where she was 100% for fracking. But look how she couched her response. She said, not only am I okay with fracking, I was the tie-breaking vote in the Inflation Reduction Act and one other bill that she signed that increased land leases for the purpose of fracking. She made it sound like she passed the bill it had more fracking. No, she was the tie-breaking vote on something that was like a few pages in a 1,000-page bill. But it was an effective response. And her response on the gun buyback was fairly effective too. And then again, the weakness was in the border crossings. Trump had an opportunity to pound it there. So overall on that piece, he was pretty good there. But then he artfully pivoted to her position on defunding police, on the stuff that happened where she raised money for the people up in Minneapolis and Seattle when those cities were burning. Her lack of support for the police. I mean, these were good moments for Trump during the debates. And the I am talking now. Okay, so man, that was pretty catchy stuff. But here again, you have to think, what's the voter, the undecided voter, what are they thinking? And some opportunities hit, some opportunities missed. Okay? Peaceful transition of power, easy one to hit out of the ballpark. You simply say if the elections are fair, we'll have a peaceful transition of power. Now, did Trump get out there and talk about January 6th? Probably way more than he should have. And threw those lines out there about Pelosi's responsible for it. Okay, maybe, but that's sort of like when people try to, blame Trump for the current inflation. That's a tough sell. But when he talked about people coming from all over the world, crossing the border, people can relate to that. Okay, we're going to take our final time out, but when we come back, at the end of that debate, Trump was super strong, talking about foreign affairs, and we're going to get into other positive things that Trump did during this debate, and we'll put a final bow on it at the end. So be back in about 90 seconds.
Attention business owners, are you ready to advertise to millions of loyal patriots ready to buy your products or services? Here's your golden opportunity to advertise with Mark Schaftlein. When you advertise on Election Edge, you've aligned your company with a trusted voice and connected with an audience that shares your values. Mark hosts the exciting new live show that delves into every facet of the 2024 U.S. presidential election, offering insightful analysis, expert interviews, and up-to-the-minute coverage of the key events and developments throughout the election season. When you advertise on Election Edge, you're aligning your brand with integrity, loyalty, and a dedication to truth. Mark's audience is passionate, conservative, and committed to the values your business stands for. When given the choice, Mark's followers will buy your product or service over other woke companies. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your brand with the power of Patriot TV. Reach out to us today at advertise@patriot.tv.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
And we're back. Folks, did you get tired of hearing the words turn the page last night? I kept thinking, turn the page, you're the incumbent. Now, I know she's talking about wanting to turn the page from the divisiveness, as she says. But turn the page, if I'm Trump, I'm saying turn the page, you are the page. You know, you are part of the existing administration. And boy, he closed great with it at the end. But again, throughout the debate, that came up time after time again. I'm saying, focus back that she's the incumbent, that you're the change candidate. Bear in mind, when he's the change candidate and the points he brought up last night, he looked good. When he was the object of the change pointing to him, not so good. Now, I thought some great lines on the international piece. His positions on oil are very, very good. And he talked about the fact, we're going to be relying upon solar, windmills. What if the wind doesn't? He's right about that. He's also right about the following. We talked about the national security piece a little bit earlier in the show. That was a terrible look on her part when she was talking about meeting with the president of Ukraine 3 days before the invasion. Trump hit it out of the park. He goes, had I been president, they wouldn't have invaded. Because China was afraid of Trump, North Korea was afraid of Trump, and Russia would, because they didn't know how Trump would react, they had fear of Trump also. You want your leaders to be feared and respected. He brought up Viktor Orban. Now, there's a strong guy for you. So those were excellent points. Then Trump talked about Israel. He frankly could have talked a little more about it. All Harris delivered was a weak, we want to see the ceasefire and hostages brought back. No solution how to make that happen. And the old tired, we want a two-state solution that neither Israel nor Hamas want. So, with her, it was the empty suit type thing. And, he had a great line. Well, hey, when the president of Israel, Netanyahu, was here addressing a joint session of Congress, you went to a sorority party. I thought that was a great line because it's true. And he did factually talk about, look, the Democratic Party has lurched so far to the left, they actually have the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party. And he did pound him on that. So on Israel, Trump brought up the fact under him, Abraham Accords, move the embassy. There was peace. There was no wars. Same with Russia, Ukraine. So on that front, again, what did we suggest Trump talk about before the debate? Peace and prosperity. And he talked about how the Iranians were broke under his administration. And they were. So Trump had a lot of positives to talk about on those particular points. And again, the fact checks 5-0 against Trump, when it really, if they're going to fact check Trump, they need to do a fact check to her. But I got to tell you something, another thing, what gets me, like these clowns come in on CNN and some of these networks, they say, well, Trump lied 33 times, she only lied once. Baloney. We've already given you 8 different statements she made that weren't true. And do you count a lie as a non-answer or a deflection? You know, at the end, when they brought up the question of Afghanistan, Miss, I was the last person in the room. Do you bear responsibility for what happened? Dodged the question. Said something to the effect, oh no, it was the right decision to get out there. Other people had tried, couldn't, we were successful. She didn't answer, didn't take responsibility, missed last person in the room, and she just dodged the question. So now, again, all this adds up. Now, when Trump's throwing out, let's talk about Ukraine. Wasn't exactly his best moment when he was asked directly multiple times, do you want Ukraine to win? Easy answer would have been, yeah, of course we do, but that's not realistic. Russia's the largest, blah, blah, blah. He did turn it to the nuclear weapons piece because he frankly was pretty good on that. That was a warning sign, folks. Trump knows what he's talking about when it comes to that, and he did a pretty damn good job. Now, did he have to constantly make reference to World War III? Probably not. But you pounded in there enough. His answer on the Russians was awful good, and he demonstrated his skills at foreign policy. So I thought that was pretty good. You know, when Harris talks about the fact that, you know, we brought 50 countries in, and, you know, we've given them, you know, U.S.-based weapons and our NATO allies. That's true. But there's a big, Trump was correct on this too about getting people to pay their fair share. Had it not been for him, that wouldn't have happened. So both of them got to score some points there. But the big piece that he pounded over and over, and think about the message, folks. Harris, I met with Zelensky 3 days before the war. I was there. I left. Boom. Then they get invaded. That just demonstrates the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration. And the insults back and forth where she made reference, I talked to world leaders and they think you're a buffoon and a fool. And Trump knows a lot of those leaders too, and he rebutted that pretty damn good. So I think on those pieces, I think he did good. And when he brought up Abdullah, the leader of Afghanistan, again, he brings this point up in a lot of his stump speeches, you know, where he talks about, he told Abdullah, do not hurt Americans. I know the house where you live. And Abdullah had seen what they did to Soleimani. So Trump had a pretty good position there. And then I thought this was probably one of the lower moments, was towards the end of the debate, somehow they got, and let me backdrop. I don't know whether Harris's campaign had access to some of these questions before. I know a lot of conspiracy theory people say that. I don't know. But who comes to a debate talking about an issue that happened 40 or 50 years ago, like Trump mentioned, on this Central Park 5 thing? I mean, come on already. I mean, we always talk about elections are forward, not backward looking. That was a low point for Harris there. But Trump did towards the end. Again, he talked about how he will rebuild the economy. Didn't give specifics, but he did emphasize the need to keep oil in this country. And more oil. And open up more sources. I thought that was pretty good stuff. When they talked about Obamacare, stay away. Okay? That is a political loser issue. You know, when they started talking about the great late John McCain, look, McCain got drummed out by Obama, okay? They can give him platitudes all he wanted for that thumbs down vote on Obamacare. We all remember it. But look, McCain got blown out, okay? Trump's in a good position right now. Going into the debate, leading in a lot of the swing states, basically a tied race. So again, her piece where she talked about closing arguments, I'm not against defracking. I'm not taking your guns. I don't want to defund police. We know those are contrary positions. And then when they asked, oh my God, then they asked about the climate change. Oh boy, I roll my eyes. You know, you knew that they were going to bring that up. And it's sort of like the last issue before the closing arguments. Why couldn't Trump just stick to his, hey, when I was president, we had the cleanest water, the cleanest air. I mean, it's funny and it's a little lightheartedness, but sometimes those pieces have impact in debates. All right, now, closing arguments, closing statements. You know, Harris gave canned lines. We're not going back. I'm a president for all Americans. We know that's not true. Not even close to true. And we're going to build an economy over the next 10 to 20 years. Well, you know what? If you're struggling with debt, you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you're having a hard time paying for meals, paying for car insurance, you don't want to hear about what's happening in 10 or 20 years. You want to worry about what's happening now. And a lot of people, by about 20% of those undecided voters, they feel Trump will do better on the economy. So again, I thought his closing argument, after you got through her stump speech, I thought he was great. Why hasn't she done it in 3.5 years, he kept saying. You know, you've had the border, you've had jobs, you've had the country, you know, we're dealing with wars in the Middle East, war in Ukraine. We didn't have that when I was president. We can't sacrifice our oil industry. Great line by Trump. Energy makes our country strong. Again, part of Trump's appeal is his strength. And he was talking about how under Biden and Harris, the U.S. is not a leader. And is the risk of nuclear war higher? It's higher right now by definition. And I'm not talking Kim Jong-un. I'm talking what's happening in Russia right now. A mistake gets made there, millions could die. So, let's talk about our conclusions. The media did pile on Trump, no doubt about it. You knew it was going to happen. The debate was not necessarily fair, but having said that, we have to look forward. We'll keep an eye on where these polls come out over the next few days. We'll see if there's been movement. Bear in mind, folks, sometimes the winner of the debate does not win the election. It happens more times than not. Anyhow, Trump will do better. That's it for today, Election Edge. Solo analysis by yours truly. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got some great show hosts, some guests lined up, and we'll be talking about this a little bit more then. We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for listening.